How's it going, everybody? This is the Uncanny Omar from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. And today I have the pleasure to be talking to Jake Williams. How are you doing, sir?
Hey, dude, I'm good. Thank you for having me. I like that countdown a lot. That was cool.
Oh, yeah, we had that. That was a lot of fun to put together.
Yeah.
One of our good, wonderful viewers put it together for us. I'm like, I'm not just going to have a number countdown. That's ridiculous. We got to do this by volume number. Yeah, thank you.
It's perfect. It rules. That's awesome.
So, Jake, you are an editor at IDW. You've been there for about 4 years now, and your current project is this really cool Godzilla project, Kai-Sei, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes.
Tell me a little bit about this, and because Godzilla as a whole, has had a whole film franchise since 1954, right? He's been in cartoons, he's been in video games, he's been in TV shows, and of course, comics. And IDW has published a lot of great comics. So what is this era about? How does it stand out over the other eras of the IDW Godzilla comics?
Yeah, so basically when I took over Godzilla about a year and a half ago at this point, and from jump, I knew that I wanted to start crafting this kind of new continuity, right? This new connected universe. And a big part of that was, I think that there's certain things that are meaningful to comic book fans, right? And I think that for the last few years, we've been publishing these kind of unconnected Godzilla miniseries. I think there's like a lot of fun in miniseries, but I think for me personally, I've always been so attracted to the ongoing portion of, the comic book industry. I love when a book can hit issue 30. I love when a book can hit issue 50, I love finding these books that's like, oh yeah, that book doesn't even really get good until issue 14, I think that's such a fun part of comics. And I think that doing these kind of like connected, shared continuity stories together kind of like, I don't know, generates a greater meaning for the universe and the characters in it when you know that like their actions or what affects one character will also affect these other books in the line. So for me, it was this way to kind of like plant our flag and be like, these Godzilla comics, quote unquote, matter in a different way because, they matter to each other and they matter to the next issue. And it's not gonna reset every 6 issues. We're going to have a long-term story and this world's going to really evolve as we go. So yeah, it's been a blast building it out.
Okay. World building, new comics. Yeah. How are you kicking it off and when does it start? When does the I guess when does the first issue drop? Because you have 3 series, right?
3 series, yes. So we just had this weekend for Free Comic Book Day. We had this it was called Godzilla: The New Heroes, and that was kind of a preview for the 3 books in the line, right? So that previewed the main title, the core ongoing by Tim Seeley and Nicola Sismeja. That drops July 23rd. Godzilla #1, July 23rd. That's our main ongoing series, and that's going to follow kind of this group of this American G-Force that has been battling Godzilla and other kaiju for years, and they're going to do whatever it takes to kill Godzilla once and for all. And that kind of separates them from the rest of the world because, in this universe, kind of in the Cold War, post-World War II, there are different experimentations with new energy sources, and there are these experiments with this energy source known as Kai-Sei. And Kai-Sei in our world is where all kaiju are derived from. That's kind of the source of any supernatural power in our world, be it a superhero or a kaiju. And those experiments basically awokened Godzilla. They created a whole bunch of new kaiju, and they started this kind of 70-year war that humanity has been fighting against kaiju. So when we enter this world in the modern day, it is broken, it is beaten down. Sections of America are completely destroyed. And, there's other countries have tried to make peace with Godzilla. They've tried to treat it and the other kaiju like natural disasters and try to live among the kaiju. But in America, we're still full on guns blazing. We are going to kill Godzilla by any means necessary. And what kind of separates Godzilla from the other kaiju in our world is it controls this Kai-Sei energy. So it can absorb the Kai-Sei energy and blow it back out with its heat ray. And up until our Free Comic Book Day teaser, he was the only being that could do that. And we're introducing this boy named Jason who can also control this Kai-Sei energy. So this boy and Godzilla are kind of intrinsically linked to each other and are kind of fated to destroy one another. And that's our starting point for the Godzilla ongoing.
And all of that is in the first issue of Godzilla?
Yeah, so a lot of this is kind of general world building things that we're going to be hinting at and learning more about. But in the first issue, we follow this boy as he joins the team, and they start making plans to use him to kill Godzilla.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's our starting point.
And that one is the one that comes out in July, you said?
Yeah, July 23rd, Godzilla #1.
Okay. And what's the second volume? Or I'm sorry, what is the second series? Is that Starship Godzilla, or is it?
Yeah, so our second series is called Godzilla Escape the Dead Zone. And one thing I mentioned earlier is for reasons we're going to come to find out, this is kind of a big secret or conspiracy in the world. Part of the Pacific Northwest has been completely destroyed. It's been eradicated and it's been walled off. So that's been happening for about 3 or 4 decades. And the American government has told its people that nothing exists on the other side of this wall. Nothing is alive. You know, it's the site of this massive Godzilla attack. And we are going to peer over that wall and discover that there have been these civilizations that have been forming post this attack. And there are these kind of like mutant weirdos who have been kind of affected by the Kai-Sei radiation, if you will, that was left over from the attack. And we follow this character right there known as the Wanderer. And he's sort of this half kaiju, half human. He doesn't really remember where he comes from. We're going to get into that during the series. And he kind of is this Clint Eastwood wandering Ronin type who's going from kind of civilization to civilization inside of the dead zone, searching for something. And we're going to kind of find out more about that as we get into the book.
So this one is a lot different than the Godzilla book, because in the Godzilla book you have, you know, Godzilla.
Yeah.
With the new Kai-Sei energy.
Yeah.
This one focuses more on a mutated type of character that we see there on the cover. And I want to make sure I'm just going to show this little page right here.
Yeah. So that's kind of a little peek at the dead zone. So you can see we have these kind of like mutant cities. We have these like bizarre wastelands. You can see these weird little kind of vampire creeps that are hanging around.
So, okay. This is a big fan, Jake. Hope I can write like you and get the same amount of gigs. You're the best. Tell me when this one comes out.
Yes. So this comes out, I think it's about 5 to 6 weeks after the release of Godzilla #1. It comes out in August. So before Godzilla issue 2 comes out, this will come out. And so basically it seems really different, and it is really different, but it is very much in the same world. So as the American G-Force is outside of this wall in the normal world fighting Godzilla, this is very much part of the world, and it will be referenced, and eventually down the road, you might see some characters interact. But for right now, we're keeping these series kind of very separate, and they're just kind of fleshing out different parts of the same world. And we're meeting new characters, and they're doing different things. But so part of that isolation that the American government has done to the dead zone is also the reason that we get to kind of tell these stories very separately, where the Wanderer is in that wall and the rest of our characters are outside of that in the normal world.
And this one will have variant covers as well.
Yes, you're looking at a variant cover right there from Rod Reyes.
Who is the creative team of this book?
Of this one, yes. So this is the writers from Kill Your Darlings. This is Griffin Sheridan and Ethan S. Parker. So some heavy hitters. Those guys are really, really awesome. And the artist is this guy, Pablo Tunica, who's done some Ninja Turtles work. But Pablo has this really fun, kind of edgy, kind of goopy art style that's just so interesting and so perfect for this kind of mutated world that we're entering. So I love his art. It's been such a blast to see. Okay.
And we have a third series.
Yes. The third series is our sci-fi offering. This book is called Starship Godzilla. And this book is basically, for years in the Godzilla movies, aliens come to Earth and they bring different space kaiju to attack Earth, to attack Godzilla in an attempt to take over. And this book is letting readers kind of go to space. And we're connecting the Toho space universe into one cohesive thing for the first time. And the people we follow is this team of kind of mercenaries. It's kind of Cowboy Bebop, it's kind of Guardians of the Galaxy, but very much its own twist. And they fly around in Mechagodzilla. So we have this modified version of Mechagodzilla that's been turned into a starship. And basically, who better to take on these kaiju missions than a team of people that fly around in a kaiju? So in this world, in space, there's basically no greater weapon than a kaiju. So when we're entering these giant kind of space fights, it's always about control over these space kaiju that they kind of use as these massive weapons in battle. So we follow these mercs who are kind of willing to take, they're not really picking a side. They're just kind of picking themselves right now. And as we go on, they'll kind of be forced to pick sides. And that's also part of like the space opera of it all, as we watch this crew kind of have some infighting with each other of what side of this galactic war they want to fall on.
And who is the creative team on this third book?
Yes. So the writer of this book is this guy named Chris Gooch, who I think you're going to start seeing his name a lot more. He's a graphic novelist who's done some work with Top Shelf, typically a writer artist. He did In Utero and some other books over there. And the artist is this guy, Oliver Ono, who we are just incredibly blessed to have Oliver. Oliver is a killer. His work is awesome. He did this book called Godzilla as a Monster Island Summer Camp for us. And then this is kind of his first big like direct market offering.
Oh, this will be the first time he's doing like a monthly series.
Yes. Yes.
So I showed just a little bit of, the Starship Godzilla, this one here, where you actually see Mechagodzilla. But this scene right here, I thought when I was looking at it, I thought it was James Toho at first, just with the amount of energy that he brings to it, which is a good thing.
Stoko's incredible. Yeah.
Golly, yeah.
I know, dude. When I saw that page come in for the first time, it was one of those like, oh, this is going to be good. We're good. We've done it. We've made a cool thing. This is going to work,
And that one, when is the release date of this one again?
So Starship Godzilla is the third book. It is in October. So you'll have a chance to kind of get used to the Kai-Sei, kind of what's happening on Earth. And then we're going to blast off into space with this one and see a whole different part of this universe.
And it's a FOC. I think the pre-order deadline is on June 9th for the Godzilla comic.
For the Godzilla, the ongoing, yeah. So on June 9th, and you can pre-order all of them right now, but yeah, on June 9th, that is the pre-order deadline for Godzilla #1. And those pre-order dates, those do really help a lot. If you like what we're doing here, we're only going to get crazier, only going to get weirder. But yeah, buying it early with that initial pre-order is so paramount to allowing us to continue to make these weird books and continue to push it farther and farther.
So I have to ask you this, and I know you have an answer. So when it comes to comics, right, like people that get into the comics field, whether it's an editor or even the publisher, like most of the time they do have a love and passion for comics. When it comes to something like Godzilla, do you have to have a passion and love for not just comics, but also Godzilla? Like you have to really enjoy the character and like have seen all the films. Like, is that how you feel about this job that you have? Because it seems like a lot, man.
Yeah. So I'm glad you asked that, because very specifically what we're trying to do is we're trying to make Godzilla comics for everyone in the same way that Godzilla films are for everyone, right? It's not like when a Godzilla film comes out, only huge Godzilla fans go see it. Everyone goes to see a Godzilla film. Godzilla's awesome.
That's the thing, especially after -1. Oh,
yeah, exactly. Everyone goes to see those movies. And in the same way, we're using Godzilla and we're using the trappings of Godzilla and we're using everything we get from that character to make comics for everyone. Like, we're just trying to make really great comics. And you do not need to have ever seen a Godzilla film to like these comics. We're introducing tons of new characters that kind of serve as a new lens into this world. It's a new Godzilla. This Godzilla hasn't seen those Godzilla movies. This Godzilla didn't take part in those Godzilla movies, This Godzilla is an entirely new beast. It's a whole new animal and it's a whole new world. And my whole thing is that I think a good comic is a good comic. And sometimes in the past, you know, you've been in this for a while, licensed comics kind of fluctuate between being comics for only hardcore fans of that property and then just like being good comics. And from day one, what I wanted to do with this line was just make really great comics. And they're not just books for like, I call them like in between comics is what I refer to as licensed comics for just the true fans, where it's like, this comic takes place in season 6 of this TV show, and it's in between episodes 7 and 8. And because of that, we can't affect the characters in any real way, and we can't actually tell a story, and we certainly can't kill anyone. And this is not that. This is a whole new comic book world. And in the same way, like, I'm not really a Transformers fan, but I picked up the Daniel Warren Johnson comic because I like comic books, and Daniel Warren Johnson was making a good comic book, you know, like that's what we're trying to do here. So,
well, I'm sorry. The gentleman's name again, who did the Starship Godzilla? This gentleman?
Oliver Ono is the artist.
Dude, that's Daniel Warren Johnson vibes too. I'm really, I was reading that one and I was like, who is this artist? So when you mentioned IP and licensed characters, and sometimes it takes place in between seasons, you know, the first thing that came to mind was I have the Omni of John Carter of Mars. And that Omni takes place in between not 2 books, in between 2 paragraphs.
No way.
Of a book. Yes.
No way.
And I have never read the books and I didn't watch the movie, but I really liked the comic. And I'm like, what happens in this book that all of this takes place in between 2 paragraphs? Yeah, I've seen things like that. And it kind of makes me, you know, when I was younger, it would make me stay away from projects, though. It would be like, I haven't seen those movies, or I haven't played that video game series or read the books. Mainly read the books. I did play all the video games and watched all the movies. It was mainly the books that I did not read all of. But it would kind of make me stay away from projects like that. So it's really cool for you all to be doing something from scratch. But I mean, the lore is there, and I'm sure that we're going to see a lot of similarities. What would you say is one of the biggest differences between like this type of Godzilla compared to previous incarnations that we've seen, both in the comics and in the, of course, movies?
Yeah, I think the biggest difference is that we are, because we're focused 70 years after the initial attack, it is a world that has been kind of fully derived from Godzilla. It's not just our world and Godzilla attacks. It's a world where Godzilla's attack and continued attacks has fully shaped this world, right? So I really view it as it is the comic book version of a Godzilla attack. You know, it is a comic booky world that's been shaped by Godzilla, and because of that, we're going to see things that you would never see in a movie. I mean, just in the first preview, in the Free Comic Book Day book, you see a character that punches Godzilla. He's a human character that throws this huge like haymaker punch, and like that's the type of stuff that you're not going to get in a Godzilla film, right? It's going to be really crazy action. It's going to be really crazy mashup characters. I mean, we're really leaning into the stuff that you're only going to see in a comic book page, which brings us to the Dead Zone book, which has a half human, half kaiju character, right? Like you're not getting that in a
that is so unique, man. Yeah. Because I saw the cover, and thank you to Greg for sending me the digital files, because I got to read all 3 of them, or at least, I'm sorry, look at them. They're not finished yet, so or at least the escape wasn't finished. It didn't have any of the lettering, but I got to check it out. Yeah, and I was like, what? Is that a mutated like kaiju human hybrid? And I was like, oh, this is pretty cool.
Yeah,
things that you haven't seen before, as you have said.
Yeah, no, it's the first time Toho's ever allowed that in anything before. So, you know, these books are not aiming to be reflections of the films. These books are aiming to be a totally new universe, totally new ideas, totally new characters. And like I said, we're just trying to make good comics with the only thing that's like, we're going to use the same kind of Toho monsters and all that. But like, if you think the idea of a giant monster attacking a city is cool, that's the only buy-in you need. You know, like you hear before kind of
destruction. That's what I'm for.
I've heard people kind of leading up to this kind of be like, oh yeah, if Godzilla's your thing, check these out, or kind of being like, I don't know if I'm a Godzilla fan, I might not check these out. And it's like, that's not, it's just for fans of comics. It's for fans of good comic books, you know, like that's
You
what
like
we're
disaster movies.
yeah, you know, it's
yeah.
So that's our whole thing, is how is this separated from the Godzilla films? These are concepts and ideas and scenarios that you could only ever see in a comic book. And I think that's so important when you make comics, you know, don't try to do some representation or version of the film. Try to make something that you could only do in a comic. And that's really been our driving force here, you know.
Oh, it looks like you all are. You mentioned something that I want to go back to.
Yeah.
You are working with a licensed property. So does every script have to be approved? Like, I know I know Toho totally hated the Marvel when they shrunk Godzilla and he had to fight a rat. Like, they were like, that's why would you do that to Godzilla? Yeah. So is that the way it works? Like, you all, or do you all just send like the plot synopsis over and they're like, yeah, this sounds good?
Yeah, so I have a licensor I work with. His name's Aaron. Aaron is the best. He's the coolest guy in the world. And basically how it works is I send all of these initial pitches and these initial ideas to Aaron, and he approves them, or he talks about possible problem areas, and then we'll rework stuff and send it right back to him. And then as we go, yeah, we send it every step of the way. You know, Toho's our partner on this. We bring them everything. But, you know, there's different guardrails up. One of them being, we can't shrink Godzilla. You're not going to see Godzilla get tiny again. That's one thing that's a no from them. But other than that, like, they're really, really cool about what, one thing I've been saying with this world is it's not just about seeing what Godzilla can destroy. It's about seeing what Godzilla's presence would create. And they're really, really chill about new things. They're really awesome about like, hey, could we do this new character that's part kaiju? Like, that doesn't bother them at all. As long as Godzilla is depicted as this massive force of nature, they're really chill about the context surrounding Godzilla and the other characters we build up to fight Godzilla. So they've been really awesome and really easy partners in that way. But yeah, we do send them every stage of the project goes to Toho.
I kind of figured that's how it works with licensed properties like Godzilla, because it is very near and dear to their heart. And of course, it totally makes sense. I mean, character's been around since the 50s. Let's talk about this word, Kai-Sei.
Yeah. Let's talk about Kai-Sei.
I was about to ask, what does it mean to you? But no, what does it mean? What exactly is Kai-Sei? How did it come about?
Yes. So basically, as we were building this universe, we very quickly discovered a need for a new energy source that would be like kind of serve as the creation point of kaiju and the creation of Godzilla. And I was talking to Tim, the writer, Tim Seeley, the writer of the ongoing, and I was like, Tim, let's name this thing. What should we call it? And he came back right away with this kind of combination of Japanese words, and it is this fake word, and because of that, he has it like the Americans in universe created this word. So there's like there's a lore reason for why it's not really a real Japanese word. But in the same way that Godzilla comes from kind of a combination of gorilla whale, this is our combo of, it's Kai as in like beast, as in kaiju, and Sei as in energy. So it kind of roughly translates out to like strange beast energy is the word for it. And universe, it is the energy that creates kaiju. So it's very fitting that it's strange beast energy.
Strange beast energies. Actually sounds like a legit title for a Godzilla movie.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. So you were a fan of Godzilla movies then?
Yeah. So I would say that I was kind of the standard Godzilla fan, which is to say, as I described earlier, any new Godzilla film that's come out in my lifetime, I've been first in line to see, you know, but like most people, like that didn't mean that I was digging into the comics or the movies or even the back catalog. You know, a lot of that came once I got this job and was like, all right, let's watch all the Heisei movies, you know, let's watch the Showa films, let's get into it. Let's really dig into the whole lore. But, you know, that's what it comes down to here is I'm trying to make a comic that would appeal both to the real fans and to the people like me who's like, yeah, Godzilla's cool, but I don't know, aren't licensed comics just for the guys who have seen all the movies and need some more material, you know? And it's trying to like thread that needle for both audiences and create something that is really cool that like long-term fans would like, will also be something as generative and new as like the legendary MonsterVerse, you know?
Mm-hmm. I like the idea of building a new universe because yeah, you're right. In the past, IDW has released some amazing Godzilla comics, and each one of them has kind of been like almost like a standalone, right? Like creating new characters just for the particular stories, and honestly, in a way, very reminiscent of the different eras of Godzilla throughout the years in the movie verse, and it's nice to see it now all kind of connecting and building one universe out of it. So very cool, very excited for this. These three are ongoing, right? They're not miniseries.
Yeah, so the way that we're viewing them right now is Godzilla, the main title, is what I refer to as like a true ongoing. You're going to see on the shelf every month,
Mm-hmm.
And then Starship Godzilla and Dead Zone, I'm kind of viewing as like the season model, which is particularly because we want to keep those same artists on those books the whole time. So Pablo and Oliver, like most artists, they can't draw 12 books a year. So how we're doing it with that is there's going to be like one season. They're going to have a couple months off. We're going to come back for another round. So those books will kind of have breaks, and then the ongoing will be there every month.
Okay. Well, that's good. That's good to know.
Yeah, you can see. I don't know if we showed that new Godzilla design too much on the sketch of it.
Yeah.
If you want to talk about the creation of that, I mean, that's kind of an interesting thing in itself. So as we were building this universe, it was a little bit into it that I realized that Toho would let us do a fully new design. So I went to Nicola and was like, dude, we can redesign Godzilla. Like, let's figure this out. And then that was kind of the biggest thing that we were going back and forth on with Toho, because it needed to be fresh and new and interesting, but it also needed to maintain Godzilla. It needed to at a glance look like Godzilla. And the other thing is it needs to be fully based on the Toho Godzilla films, because the legendary Godzilla films is a whole different thing. So it couldn't visually reference the MonsterVerse Godzilla. So it really had these different pieces that it needed to hit. But I love where it ended up. This is without a doubt my favorite Godzilla design of all time. I think it's so mean and scary looking. I love all the spikes on his head. I love his jawline. He looks incredible. I'm so psyched about this. And I think this new Godzilla design is so important to making this feel like it's a new universe, right? Like we have our own Godzilla now.
I think I'm sorry, I wanted to come back to this. I saw the spikes and I was like, oh, cool, because I really love Space Godzilla. Like Space Godzilla to me is my favorite design of Godzilla.
Yeah.
So that's what I kind of got vibes from when I saw this. But no, it looks great. So you guys were given free reign to do and design your own, huh? That's pretty cool, honestly.
Yeah. I remember kind of the first time. I'm always just sending Aaron these little emails of like, could we? My licensor Toho. I'm always sending these little emails like, could we do this maybe? And like just like waiting with like bated breath for his response. I remember the first time I was like, could he be green? Could the heat ray be green? And getting the response back of like, yeah, why not? You guys can make it green. And I was like, oh, that's going to be so tight, to have our own like color for the heat ray and the dorsal fin glowing, like so psyched about the fact that it's green. Because the funny thing about Godzilla is everyone thinks Godzilla's green. Godzilla's not green. Godzilla's gray.
Oh, no, absolutely not. Yeah, well, I mean, in the Marvel comics,
it was green in the Marvel comics, yeah.
And
but I think the Marvel comics, it's always been gray. And it's a funny thing because it's
right.
The cartoon was green too. The cartoon and the Marvel comics had green skin, but the Godzilla of the films has always been gray. But it's so no one thinks of it that way. So I'm always, whenever new artists come on board, their first sketch of Godzilla is always green, and I always have to be like, no, it's not green. It's
Mandela effect on Godzilla. It's
true.
I never thought about that, because you're right. I think it probably had to do with growing up with the cartoon and then seeing it in the Marvel comics. It must have been, I think there was a 90s cartoon, right after the Matthew Broderick
90s American cartoon. I believe that is the only other place you can see a green heat ray. I believe the 90s cartoon also had a green heat ray like our Godzilla.
And that one was great because it was after the Broderick movie.
Yeah.
I want to say, So well, I gotta ask then, man. What's your top 3 favorite Godzilla movies if you had to choose?
Ooh, top 3. Okay, I'm going to. Well, now here's my thing, and I know it might ruffle some feathers. Is I think that part of Godzilla really working is selling to the audience, making it feel real. And I think that's why this modern wave of films has been working so well for audiences, because like when you go see Godzilla -1, and especially if you're a kid, it sells the effect. You're like, oh my gosh, Godzilla's real, you know?
Oh my gosh, they did such a good job. Yeah.
But my favorite of all time is Shin Godzilla. I love Shin Godzilla.
Are you a fan of Evangelion?
I like Evangelion a lot.
Okay.
I like Evangelion a lot, and I like Shin Godzilla, and I love the new design in Shin Godzilla. I love the comedy of Shin Godzilla. The boardroom scenes are so incredibly funny, dude. Like, I didn't know it was a comedy when I put it on, and I was just laughing. Like, the bit where they have like I think it's the prime minister early on, and he's like addressing the nation, and he's like, "Do not worry, Godzilla will not come on shore. We know that if Godzilla were to come on land, it would collapse under its own weight." What's that? Oh, it's on shore. Like, it's so good. I love Shin Godzilla. I think Shin Godzilla is the high watermark of all Godzilla films. After that, I'm gonna go to the Heisei era, and I'm gonna say Biollante. I think
Biolante's solid, man. Yeah,
Biollante, and I think that Biollante, you're going to see that's kind of the blueprint of a lot of what we're doing. And Biollante being created by combining plants with Godzilla cells and the human spirit of his daughter to create this monster. Like, you're going to see that type of like crazy out there stuff in everything we do. You know, that's going to be so present. After that, I'm going to go back to, I mean, look, there's the original, that's great, but I'm going to say -1. I think -1 is so responsible for this new wave of Godzilla fandom. I think -1 is an incredible story. I think having a kamikaze pilot who returns from the war alive is such a brilliant idea for a character. Who's
I didn't know it was going to be a period piece when I went to go see it with my wife at the theater. I was like, oh, wow.
And a character whose very existence is just the fact he's still alive is a source of guilt for him, is such a brilliant character. So I love -1. I love Shin Godzilla. I know those are the two most recents, but then I'll jump back to Heisei for Biollante. So those are my three.
Well, when you were starting off your list, I was like, oh man, is he going to say the 1998 Matthew Broderick movie? Because that really, like, no, let me tell you the energy we're bringing. Oh no, Shin is great, dude. I love Shin. I'm a big fan of Anno. I think he's a phenomenal storyteller. So when I found out he was working on that and he took a break to do from Evangelion 3 to go on that movie, I was like, okay, he gets a pass. But oh, dude, it was so different and so good. And you're right. There's a lot of comedy I forgot about, and just the whole mutation thing, how Godzilla just kept changing, and just not really something that you would see. And Shin was like, music is very, very, very Evangelion. The -1 is excellent though. -1 is like, my wife isn't the biggest Godzilla fan. Neither was, I think my kid had only seen one other one. We took our oldest to go see it, and they both were like crying at the end. Like, it was so emotional and so good. There's so many good movies and brings back a lot of childhood. So like, Godzilla is something very special to a lot of people, right? It's definitely something that transcends the origin of where it started and where it is now. And I mean, so much so that studios here in America are making their own movies.
Absolutely.
Godzilla Kong was the last one, right? Godzilla versus Kong.
Yeah. The New Empire was the last one. Yeah,
that's it.
It's funny because it's something that I keep hearing over and over again, is that kids love Godzilla. Like, Godzilla just really appeals to children because they're just like,
what is it about like this thing that could kill you with like not even acknowledging your existence by stepping on you? But
I know, I think it's because it's like a dinosaur for one thing. Kids love dinosaurs, but I hear it constantly. They love it, and that's like something where like even I was checking like tweets about Free Comic Book Day, and they're all just like, oh, I had to get Godzilla for my kids. Like, I didn't realize that was so beloved by children, to be honest, until I started working on it.
Well, so tell me the role that you play. We've talked about, the teams that are going to be working on the books. We've talked about the 3 books. What is your role as an editor? Like, give people a little bit behind the scenes. Like, what exactly do you do?
Yes. Yeah. I'll kind of just walk them through the creation of this line and how that worked. And you can kind of get an idea of like what it is. So I think the closest job to that people might have a better understanding of, but it's also a job people don't quite understand, is like a film producer, right? Like, I think that's very similar. So it starts off with like, on a very, very high level planning all falls on me. So when I took over this job, my initial responsibility was to decide how many Godzilla comics were going to come out in 2025, what they were going to be kind of like loose level about, and who was going to make them, right? So to build a line, you do two things. You solicit pitches from people, then you're just like, hey, what's the Godzilla story you'd want to tell? But for this connected universe, I knew the direction I wanted these to go in. So I knew from the beginning I wanted to have this kind of superhero take on G-Force, you know, this kind of like, I wanted to do like a shonen manga style Godzilla comic, which is what our Godzilla ongoing series is. It's these people that have these powers that are going to continue to mutate in strange ways, that fight bad guys, that have these kind of different superhero-y, comic booky take on Godzilla. And for that book and the rest of the line, I reached out to different writers and different people and asked them for their pitches with that direction in mind.
Okay.
Kind of like pitched me their take on something similar to that, and eventually ended up with Tim writing it. I'm so happy with the book that Tim's put together. And yeah, from there it becomes like Tim then pitches me his version of that loose concept that I presented. And then from there, I give Tim notes every step of the way, right? So I'm like, okay, cool. I really love this, and this from your pitch, your outline, but what if you added this and this? And then Tim reworks it until we get to a point that he's ready to go off on scripts, right? And then for the rest of the line, I went to Griffin and Ethan, and I had asked them for pitches. I met them at Comic-Con. They're really awesome guys. They sent me this list of like 10 pitches for different Godzilla books, but I knew I wanted this kind of dead zone guy wandering through a wasteland book. So I was like, hey guys, what if you took all of these and made them different episodes in the same book? So I kind of combined that into this wasteland book. And then from there, they took the ball and completely ran with it. And the tone and feel of that book is all them. And then Starship Godzilla came because Chris Gooch worked with Chris Staros over at Top Shelf, and he had this pitch for this Starship Godzilla, a very different book back then, but he pitched that to me while I was early stages of building the line, and I was like, oh, that's the best idea I've ever heard for a Godzilla comic. So let's take that and let's kind of mold this to the rest of the universe and make this kind of work. So from there, it becomes shepherding the three titles and making sure they all work together in different ways. I hired all the artists. So like, I was like, oh, I think Pablo would be awesome on Dead Zone. So I reached out to Pablo. Oliver Ono is a buddy. I think his work's incredible. I reached out to him, was like, I think you'd be great on Starship. He was super game. Nicola, I've been reading on Batman and Robin. He did a little work with us at IDW. So I put him on that book. And that's what it is. It's a lot of like, it's producing the sense of giving loose ideas, giving notes on those ideas, combining creative teams, finding artists and bringing those in, running the cover prep plan, and just kind of like, I have a loose idea of the type of Godzilla comics that I'd really want to read and that I think people would be really interested in. And it's working with these people to produce those.
So, producer, I think, yeah, you nailed it. Like the way that you work, but you have you wear a lot of hats though, because of everything that you're doing behind the scenes and making sure the books are interwoven into each other's storylines too. Because I, without going into spoilers, I don't know if I'm allowed to ask, are these taking place in the same time, like era, like the same time?
Yes. These are all kind of a loose thing that I'll put as kind of like a little note on one of the issues of Dead Zone. Dead Zone is taking place slightly before Godzilla the Ongoing, but in the same year. Like they're taking place at the same time. And Starship Godzilla is also the same time. It's just way out in space. But we are going to see these characters meet and interact eventually. Right now, I'm describing the line as like... it's very jazz. It's very jazzy right now, where like everyone's off creating on their own. Like I purposely like sequestered these books from each other because I wanted these books to have space to grow and evolve and create without worry about restrictions from the other books. And then when someone has a really good idea that might affect the like kind of lore of the universe, I will then take that and present it to the other writers and just be like, hey, just be aware. I think that Tim's playing with this idea and that might affect your book for this reason. But
okay. Yeah. You know, in a way, when just using this as an example, like when you have the Bat family books, right? Like at DC, where you have the X-Men family books, like that's the editor has to kind of bring everything together.
Yeah.
You can't, let's say if they kill off somebody like Stephanie Brown, for example, you can't be using her in Detective Comics as the editor. You have to be like, hey, they just killed her off in Batman. How about we can't use that character?
Yeah.
Right.
And
so
what's been funny here is it's the character coordination will eventually come into it more, but the biggest thing is there's just one Godzilla to go around, so we have to be you know how we're using Godzilla, and part of that is Starship Godzilla. We're using the metal one, right? It's Mecha Godzilla up there, and that's that Godzilla. And as you mentioned earlier, space has been known to have its own Godzilla. We might run into that character as well. So we have that stuff there, and then down here on Earth we have this one Godzilla. And that's why Godzilla is going to be in Dead Zone, but Dead Zone is more about the people that Godzilla leaves behind, right? It's about the world and the devastation in the wake of Godzilla and the world that sprung up kind of in the footprint of Godzilla's destruction. And then the ongoing is the book where you're going to see all Godzilla all the time. By issue 3 of the ongoing, Godzilla's on like just about every page. Like we're going to have so much Godzilla in that book. And that's where we're really following that character. And Dead Zone Godzilla shows up at really key moments. And then it's what he leaves behind. And then Starship Godzilla is the metal Godzilla and the space Godzilla. But the big thing though, when building this universe, it becomes, I'm like a historian of a fake world at this point where, they're building this universe together. So I have to be there to be like, okay, if this Dead Zone existed for 40 years, that means that we need to make sure in any flashback in the ongoing that the world has an understanding that part of America was destroyed. And if part of America was destroyed, it would mean this and this and this. And like keeping all those dominoes upright has been a challenge as we build out history in these 3 different books.
Man, this is exciting. It's the beginning of a new Godzilla universe. Now, so the other question that I have, and I don't know, you might not be able to answer though, is, well, no, I don't think it will affect it. Okay, so you have this universe, right? It's the Kai-Sei universe. So what happens if Toho wants to come back and he's like, hey, I've got another idea for a Godzilla comic? That will be its own separate thing. Like, so
I would love Toho to come play in the Kai-Sei era as well. But,
oh man, yes.
But I will say that we are going to still do limited series in some capacity. For right now, I really want to focus on the Kai-Sei era. We'll have some announcements soon about some other stuff. I'd say for right now, if a book is not in the Kai-Sei era, it's going to be really clear why it's not. That would be like a Monster Piece Theater situation where it's like, Godzilla's fighting the Great Gatsby, so that's probably not canon to the Kai-Sei era, Yeah. Similarly, like we're going to continue to do these Godzilla versus America books, right? And those books are not canon to the Kai-Sei era. And I think it will be really obvious and feel really clear when it's a outside of continuity miniseries and when it is a Kai-Sei era book. For one thing, all the Kai-Sei era books have a big thing on it that says Kai-Sei era. They all have these window boxes on the cover.
Oh, okay.
So that's one way you're going to know. But yeah, I think it's going to feel pretty clear. And part of that's going to be that the Kai-Sei era is expansive enough and it's big enough and it's existed for long enough that I do think there's room for countless concepts and countless stories to exist in that world. So if I'm getting new pitches, I'm probably going to figure out ways to mold that into the Kai-Sei era.
So you have July, August, and October, right? October is
Starship.
Okay. Yeah, man, you got your hands full with that.
Yeah.
But it can't, and you still have time to, because you're also working on the sequel to Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees, right?
Yes.
You're the editor on that with Patrick Horvath, right?
Yes, I am. And that book is something that, so the story for that book was already getting edited back when, because Maggie Howell and I were on the first book together. Maggie left to go join Ignition Press with Jamie Rich. So she's over there cooking up some cool books with those people. But Maggie and myself and Patrick have been going over the story for book 2 since before book 1 even came out. So Rite of Spring is in very good hands, and at this point, you know, Patrick's just a mad genius. So all I do is just check in on that book and be like, still making awesome stuff. Okay, cool. This looks awesome, and just kind of helping to guide. But that book certainly takes up less of my time as an editor than the universe, because again, Patrick's a genius. Patrick's got a handle on it, and you know, I just check in to give my 2 cents every once in a while.
I know that we are very excited for that one, right? And it's also going to be a mini series, so it's a lot different than like handling the ongoing, right, of Godzilla. And yeah, very excited for that. When does that one starts in July as well, doesn't it?
That one also starts in July. Yeah, I would need to pull up. Let me pull up that release date right now, and I'll tell you that comes out July 9th. So, yeah. I mean, that book, dude, it is so cool. It goes in such a different direction. Also, the pre-order deadline is June 2nd for Beneath the Trees, Rite of Spring #1. So June 2nd is the pre-order deadline. Let your shops know you want it. But dude, that book goes in some really crazy and really fun new directions. So I cannot wait. There's a moment. The way that issue 5 ends is so shocking.
You gotta make me wait till issue 5.
Dude, well, first of all, the hook in issue 1 is awesome. Issue 1 has an awesome hook, but issue 5 has a earth-shattering, awesome moment that we're gonna end that issue on for issue 6. And yeah, dude, this Rite of Spring is gonna blow people's minds. It is so sick.
I got to talk to Patrick at New York Comic Con and talk a little bit about the story without going, you know, too much into details, because I don't want to spoil it for anybody. And but it was definitely one of my favorite reads when that book came out. Oh my gosh, I loved it. I don't know how many copies I've bought for friends that aren't really into comics. It's definitely a book that it's not a book for everybody. You have to be into
it is not a book for everybody.
I almost said it's a book you can give anybody, but no. That's it all. But it is definitely a book for people that have an obsession with serial killers, or the mind of the serial killer, or Dexter for that matter. Oh my gosh, it was so good and so freaking like I didn't see that coming. So I cannot wait for this.
I think Beneath the Trees is one of those books that is just kind of like the cream of the crop when it comes to comics, you know. And when I was working at a shop, it was around the time that the first Department of Truth came out, and I had a very experience at the shop with that comic, where a very similar experience at the shop with that comic, where that was a book you just wanted to put into people's hands. You know, it's so innovative, it's so different, it's so strange, and also it's such a comic. And that's what's really fun about Department of Truth and Beneath the Trees is their art styles are just intrinsically linked to the storytelling of both books, you know, like, and I think that's so important to these comics, and it's part of what makes them stand out and stand above a lot of the rest of comic books out there. And yeah, just an incredible book. I mean, Beneath the Trees is such an easy book to put into people's hands. It's so weird and different and in a strange way welcoming, you know, to new fans. But dude, when we talk about hooks, actually, the other Godzilla thing I want to say as a bit of a tease is every single one of these issue 1s end with a kind of massive universe recontextualizing, story recontextualizing cliffhangers that all do this, like we have all these weird, interesting new concepts that we can pitch the book with, but each of these issues end with another like, and here's another thing. Here's the second evolution. Here's the first
issues.
Yeah, each of the first issues end with these kind of like, there's like the 1-2 punch of like, here's the premise of the world, and here's this other thing with each one of these issues, which I think is so important for a first issue. But that's why like talking about it is it's hard right now, because it's like I can see your energy. I'm so hyped for the book just based on the way you're talking about them. That's good. You bring a lot of energy to it, so that's what you need. They're books worthy of that energy. They're books that, like, you know, I really think like each issue of these comics is going to be like, oh, whoa, they're doing that. Oh, they're going in that direction. They're evolving in that way. And that's the thing. It's like, you know, seeing people respond to like, they're very positively, but seeing people respond to like the teasers from Free Comic Book Day is funny, because it's like, you don't even know yet. Like, that's just the most little sprinkle of a tease. Like, these get weird and these get different. And they're constantly evolving. And like, I'm as excited for issue 8 as I am for issue 1. You know, like we are really trying to up ourselves with each comic we're putting out, which has been really fun to be part of.
So is there anything else you're working on, or is it just those 2 series? The Rite of Passage, is it Rite of, or is it Rite of Spring?
Rite of Spring, yeah. So it's Beneath the Trees, whenever you see Rite of Spring. I'm on some graphic novel stuff that's coming out. I'm the editor of like Codex Black and Cooking with Monsters, which are these fun like YA middle grade offerings that we do. And then I have a lot of secret stuff. I have a lot of secret stuff that I'm like planning in the shadows. And in the same way we announced the big Kai-Sei era this year, like next year you're going to see other announcements from me as well. That's like, and we're doing this and this bigger thing and this other thing that I've been building. But so there's other stuff, but Kai-Sei era is certainly the big one. That's the one that's like, my efforts of the last year have been building this and making this awesome and finding the right team to put it together. But, you know, it's kind of like a leapfrogging thing where like, now that this one's out, I've been building this other thing that will eventually come and be really cool. So yeah, there's other stuff, but the rest of it's secret.
I'm going to take a couple of questions here from the chat. But before I do, what is the pitch for the sequel of Beneath the Trees? Can you talk about that? I know he talked a little bit about it, but what's the pitch of the first, like, is it a sequel?
So it's a sequel. It's a sequel. There's some prequel elements, but it's a sequel.
Okay.
And it's kind of a Godfather 2 in that way. We're doing a bit of like flashback stuff with the.
Awesome.
It's like, you know, Beneath the Trees exists in time, and now the sequel is going past it and also rewinding a bit. But it is following this duck named Monica Brewer, who has spent the last 8 years searching for her brother. And if you remember Beneath the Trees issue 1,
oh yeah,
Samantha dissects the hell out of a duck. And it's basically the duck that was killed in the first Beneath the Trees. Her brother has spent the better part of the last decade looking for him, and she's finally found Woodbrook. And this also,
that's what the first cover is then, whenever she's digging those holes.
Digging up. Yeah. So the first cover is a different angle of the issue 1 cover. So like the issue 1 was top down with Samantha.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
And this is in the same trees. We're now adjusting the angle, and Monica is there looking for that bag from issue 1, basically. So it's super cool. And again, it's 8 years later. We're getting into kind of like, you know, Samantha Strong kind of existed in this like golden age of serial killers where it was pre-internet. It was a small town. The world was not connected. And now it's been 8 years. We're in like the early 90s, and Woodbrook is getting the internet. Woodbrook's getting a big box store. The small town that Samantha Strong was so in love with is starting to not exist in the same way. And because the internet is now connecting everyone, it's leading certain people like Monica to find out about some stuff that might have happened in Woodbrook a few years ago. You know, there's some posts online, there's serial killer forums now, you know, and all of that's catching up to Sam in a really big way.
I love that you just gave me the tease of like, wait till you read issue 5 in a few months.
Yeah, dude, issue 5 is awesome. You wait till you read issue 5. In fact, pre-order issue 5 now. Go to the shop, pre-order issue 1 and 5.
Let me actually, this is a great question to follow up on that. I love Beneath the Trees. We need an oversized hardcover of that. There was a exclusive direct market standard hardcover, but yeah, now with this, I mean, the popularity of this book, and of course the Rite of Spring coming.
Yeah.
Do you all ever see that, like collecting both of the series together in a big oversized format, or does he have anything else in the works for this?
Yeah. So there is I assume this has been announced. It's whatever. I'll talk about it. It's my book. I can say what I want. We're doing this. We're doing this. This storybook edition of Beneath the Trees. That's going to be like DTC. So it's going to be like you can order on our shop. That's going to be a really cool collected edition. And
okay.
Then, so that's one thing. We are collecting the volumes in different ways, but the oversized hardcover, which of course is going to happen. We're going to have an oversized hardcover at some point. But for me, that's going to be once Patrick has set his piece on this initial run of Beneath the Trees. So we're doing this series. We're doing Rite of Spring. We might be doing more eventually. And once this kind of initial wave is done, then we will collect it all on kind of one omnibus, I'd say. So be on the lookout for that a little down the road, but we're not done telling the story yet. So it's not quite ready to start doing the big hardcover collection.
Awesome. I love hearing that. Patrick's got to be so fun to work with, man. I've met him twice and I've interviewed him a couple of times, and he just seems like such a fun guy to talk about murder with.
Yeah, dude.
You know,
I'll talk about Patrick and Beneath the Trees all day. I mean, Patrick is a shining light in the comics industry. He's fantastic. He is incredibly lovable. Anyone who's ever met him knows he falls really into that like kind of trope of like, here's the art I make, and it's all like dark and scary and mean. And it's like, who's the artist? And it's just like, you know, like he is the nicest guy in the world. Like one of the earlier times I met him, I remember he has a young kid, and his wife had brought their baby to the signing. So Patrick's over here signing these like incredibly dark comics, and he kept just getting distracted by like his love for his kids. So like while I was like signing his serial killer book, he kept being like, hi. And he's incredible. He's bursting with ideas. I mean, Beneath the Trees came so kind of fully formed right out the gate, you know, like he kind of had so much of not just what ended up in book 1, but so much of what ended up in book 2 was just right out of the gate. He's just bursting with creativity. He's been a big part of like kind of the indie filmmaking scene in Hollywood for a long time. And yeah, dude, he just really is the best. Exactly what you saw of Patrick when you met him is what he's like all the time. He is the coolest, nicest, most fun dude in the world.
Yeah, and I enjoy talking to him. He's a blast. And I can't wait to talk about. Maybe I'll ask him to come back on right before that.
You should, get him on.
You know, actually, both of you would be fun to talk to.
Yeah.
Together.
Yeah.
Y'all can spill the beans some more.
Absolutely. Very down. Whenever you want, man. I'm down to hop on. I love Beneath the Trees. I love these comics. I mean, that's the thing is people talk about like you were saying earlier, like, oh, I love your energy about this. And it's like, yeah, I'm making the exact comics I want to make, you know?
Yeah,
I'm doing like exactly what I want to do, and I'm making them the exact way I want to make them. And Toho is on board, and IDW is on board, and Patrick's on board, and Tim and Nicola and Pablo and all these great dudes. Like, we're just in this really fun place where we get to make really cool stuff. And I think you're seeing that kind of industry wide right now. Like I felt like there was a bit of a lull a few years ago. And now we're in this point where like Absolute Universe is popping and firing on all cylinders. And the Ultimate Universe is awesome. And Energon has been really cool. And our Turtle stuff with Jason Aaron last year was really awesome. And now we get to come and do it with Godzilla. And yeah, no one's telling us no. You know, we just get to make whatever we want to make. So it's been awesome.
And I think it's great coming from an editor to have that kind of energy, right? Because you are the guy at the end of the day that has to get people hyped up to like, let me see your script. Let's see if this is going to work. We got to, you know, work together. So I think it's wonderful that you are like that. So good. That's in good hands, man. That's awesome. And Shin Godzilla. Hell yeah, that's great. I love that movie too.
Incredible. It's hard to find. I don't know if people know that. Shin Godzilla is like kind of hard to watch in the States. It's like not available online right now. I had to go to. I'm lucky enough to live in LA. I don't really know how to pirate things. So I went to. We're lucky enough to have all these fun little. We still have video rental stores in Los Angeles, which is
you
really cool.
Lucky people. What I miss those.
We have these like hyper curated video rental stores ran by like awesome film nerds. And we have one called Vidiots that's in Eagle Rock. And
I like that name.
There to get Shin Godzilla. Like these are not easy films to find.
You rented Shin Godzilla?
I rented Shin Godzilla.
Obviously I love physical media. Yeah. I was like, any movie that I like, I have to buy, right? And you're right, because once it goes off streaming, where the heck am I going to find these things?
Yeah.
I don't want a low quality, especially with something like Shin Godzilla. That thing needs to be watched in 4K or Blu-ray at the very least.
Yeah.
Let me get to this question right here, because this is a good question. Do you also have to manage the budget as the editor? Is there a budget when it comes to these things?
There's no budget. We're going bigger and better now. So yeah, a big part of my job is managing the budget. That's a big part of it too. And how that works as an editor is it's a lot of like me going to the company and being like, I think if you give me X amount of money, I can make something this cool and it can sell this much. And that's kind of how budget works, right? So it's me kind of fighting for my budget from, the same way a producer would get a budget from the studio. I'm fighting for the budget with the company, and I'm sitting down with like the leadership of the company, and they're deciding, what they want to spend on it, what they can spend on it, what they think, sales projections would be. And a lot of it was me using the same energy and being like, hey, I promise you, if you let me spend a little more than normal, and we're going to make something really cool and really unique and really weird, and that's going to bring readers in, the comic book industry is going to show their appreciation for that by buying these comics. They're gonna want this stuff. So yeah, it's all about the budget at the end of the day, but that's all kind of approved initially. So like you talk to the creators about what their kind of page rates are, you bring that back to the leadership, and then you set the budget. And the same way with like variant covers and stuff. But yeah, definitely part of the job.
Okay. Ed, yeah, we did. We covered, or actually Jake did. Talked about the redesign of Godzilla and how it was working with Toho in regards to the redesign of Godzilla, which I can pop up again. It's a brand new design. It's really freaking cool that, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, when you're dealing with a licensed product, sometimes it's like, no, you can't change the way Godzilla looks.
Yeah.
It's like keep him the same height and everything.
Yeah, exactly. And that was such a fun thing. And, to rehash this slightly, I really was surprised. I kind of thought we couldn't do it. And then they were like, no, you can do it. I mean, there's guidelines, but sure, make a new Godzilla. And I really feel like if we were relaunching this universe the same way, but it was the Heisei era Godzilla or the Showa era Godzilla, I don't think people would believe us. I think they'd be like, it doesn't really look like a new universe. I know that Godzilla, like, I've seen him in the movies. But launching with this bold, new, weird design, I think is kind of what lets everyone actually know this is new and different, But yeah, super fun.
Wait, when it comes, okay, so let's go back to the working with I'm sorry, was it Aaron
at Toho? Aaron at Toho.
Yeah. Has there ever been a time that you were like, I wanted to do something, but they were like, no, but that's okay? Like, has that happened?
It does happen sometimes, and to be honest, it's always reasonable why, right? Like they have when it comes to like brand management, when it comes to brand management for these massive brands like a Godzilla or a Superman or whatever, it's so important that different aspects of the character are upheld, right? And when I come in as kind of like a young gun being like, what if Godzilla is this, or what if it looks like this? Like it's a feature of Aaron's job, not a bug, that Aaron kind of sits me down and is like, hey man, Godzilla's not all that. Godzilla is this. And it's like, right, okay. Godzilla isn't that. That wouldn't be Godzilla. So there were times I think early on where I think we pitched stuff that stretches the character so much that it broke. And it's like, that's not what people want out of Godzilla if you do something that looks so different. One thing is people always want to pitch me like, what if Godzilla was like a guy? And it's like, no, Godzilla's not a guy. Godzilla's a big monster. And they always want to pitch like, what if Godzilla was small? Or what if a human was turning into Godzilla, and like stuff like that. And like those are all no-goes with Toho. It's like, no, Godzilla is a massive force of nature, and that is what Godzilla is. Godzilla's none of those other things. And there's been like one or two pitches from like really cool people that were really interesting and really fun, but it did just kind of break the character in a way that Toho doesn't want. Toho wants Godzilla to be Godzilla. And, at the end of the day, I agree with them on that. So there have been times where they've been like, no, I'm sorry, that pitch just won't work. For one thing I can talk about is the initial pitch for Starship Godzilla took place way in the future. and it was kind of an android version of Godzilla itself. So it was like in the year like 4000, the remains of Godzilla have been turned into a starship. And they were like, no, that can't be. You can use Mecha Godzilla for
I was gonna say, but that's why you have Mecha Godzilla.
Yes, exactly. And again, like that was one of those guardrails where like I liked how punk and weird the initial pitch was, but like we're better off for what we're actually making. You know, I do think using Mecha Godzilla is at the end of the day the better version of the story. So it's like what I love about Toho so much, and specifically working with Aaron, is he's not just giving random restrictions that are coming out of nowhere. Like he knows Godzilla better than anyone on the planet, and he loves Godzilla more than anyone on the planet. And he's so open to making new things with Godzilla, but it's all about keeping the heart of Godzilla. You know, it's all about keeping the essence of the character. And that's where a lot of the brand guidelines come into play.
Man, this is exciting. I'm excited. You know, it kind of reminds me when IDW started doing the Ninja Turtles, like that incarnation of the Ninja Turtles, starting off with little micro series, and then we ended up getting some mini series and the ongoing series, and oh my gosh, and you guys went for 150, and I love that's like my favorite incarnation of the Ninja Turtles. I love the IDW incarnation. Dude, and then Jason Aaron is continuing that tradition, doing his own thing with it too, and it's also been great. So yeah, it's something definitely to get excited about. And in my head, because this is the home of collected editions, of course, the first thing I get excited about is like, oh, I can't wait to have that in a big deluxe hardcover format one day.
I know, man.
That art is solid.
I know, man. I'm already dreaming up what the Kai-Sei collections might look like on the shelf. So yeah, get excited.
You got to think ahead like that, man. That's awesome.
Absolutely. It's all part of it, man. You got to think about, like, it's so funny because what I talk about a lot is like issue to issue storytelling is so important. And I'm pretty big on like making sure each issue can be like, that's the one where this happens. You know, that's like, they're obviously we're doing serialized storytelling. So each issue is a part of a whole story, but I also want each issue to be unique and each issue to tell a story. You know, like that's so important to me, is getting back to like that era of comic books. But at the end of the day, one thing I talk about is like with the team is like, this will exist for a few months as a floppy comic. This will exist forever as the collected edition. You know, this will live on someone's shelf as an omnibus eventually. You know, we're a few years away from that, but like that is how people will read this forever, is a collected edition of the whole thing. So yeah, you absolutely got to be thinking about that from day one, you know?
But I don't, some people don't. So I will say some people don't.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's kind of like, we don't know where we're gonna be. Yeah, sure, but no, I like what you do, man. I think it's important.
Dude, I loved the announcement with Jeff Lemire's last series. It was like announced from day one in like the kind of like back page ad. And it was like, this will be in 5 oversized hardcovers. Like before issue 1 came out, they were saying that. And I was like, good for you guys. Calling a shot like that is awesome.
This is Jeff Lemire. They know.
Yeah.
Honestly, you guys could probably do the same thing, I assume, with people like Patrick Horvath's new series. This will be coming out in a trade, deluxe edition, a standard hardcover, and one day a box set. Because I saw that what is it that you all are doing? A complete collection of Last Ronin. All of Last Ronin together, all the miniseries together, or at least it was in the catalog that way. Yeah. People love big books. I mean, it's the world we live in.
I mean, when I first got here, one of the guys that I was just idolized was Scott Dunbier, who loves.
Oh, I love Scott. Yeah,
and I view those Parker Martini collections as just about the finest presentation of a comic book of all time. Like, I love those books. I think those books serve to like elevate the content. You know, they're so beautiful and they're so lovely that they just add to the reading experience, which I think is so important to keep in mind.
I completely agree. They are very, very beautiful. You all put out beautiful editions of books at IDW. So yeah, I can't wait to see what these collections look like. And right now, I know that, you know, they're releasing library editions of the Godzilla library. They're doing best of Godzilla collections. It's a good time to be a Godzilla fan. They're eating good, man.
Yeah, dude.
Godzilla fans are eating good, not just in the movies, but also in the comics.
Dude, on that note, man, for anyone who has not checked it out yet, also launching in July, we're going to have the Monsterpiece Theater, Godzilla's Monsterpiece Theater Collected Edition coming out. That's the Tom Scioli story that starts off as Godzilla versus the Great Gatsby and turns into Godzilla versus Sherlock Holmes and Dracula. And it is...
I have a question. Wait,
yeah.
I'm so sorry. You said it's going to be a comic, or it's going to be a graphic, like an original graphic?
So the issues already came out. It was a series, like 40 pages. They're oversized, but the trade comes out. So the first.
Oh, dude, I gotta get on that. That's
you have to. It is. I think it's Tom's best work he's ever done. I think it's one of the best Godzilla comics that's ever come out. I think it's one of the finest one of the finest comic books of last year. It is incredible. It is insane.
Oh, I can't wait to read this.
The cartooning in this book is immaculate. It is so funny. It is so weird. It is exactly what comic books should be. So Godzilla's Monsterpiece Theater, for anyone who didn't check it out, that comes out in July. You can already find single issues online and stuff like that, but the trade paperback in July.
Man, that's awesome. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for letting me know, because I had no idea that
please
was.
Check it out. I think you'd love it.
I will definitely, because I've been enjoying all those collections of Godzilla that they have been putting out. So Jake, I just want to thank you, dude, for your time, and please do come back. You and Patrick come back. Let's talk about this, especially after issue number 1.
Yeah, dude, let's do it. Let's chat whenever, man. I love talking to you, man. This is a lot of fun. I love talking to people who are actually reading the comics. You know, working at a shop, there are too many people who are just buying to collect, and talking to people who are as invested as you are in the industry it's so fun, man. So absolutely, like whenever you want to chat. If you just want to chat about comics coming out as fans, dude, let me know.
I know that you and Greg, like, that's why I love talking to Greg or seeing him post stuff. Like he working at IDW, but he also like goes and talks about like the comics he's enjoying to read. And I think that's very important.
For anyone who doesn't know, he's talking about Greg Katzman. He's our head of and Greg Katzman is one of the biggest fans of comics, just in general, certainly in the industry. And his voice is so important because he is just such a fan of the medium, such a fan of what's coming out. And it's great having him around. So yeah, he's been with us for about a year now, maybe a little more. And it's been awesome.
Maybe I need to get Greg on here one day so we can just talk about comics, because he is a huge comics fan and also wears a lot of hats in the industry. And everybody, everybody that has talked, whenever I bring him up, that has worked with Greg in the past, they all speak very highly of him. So you guys said something good. You got him to join, so that's awesome. But yeah, dude, serious. I'm not kidding. You come back. You and Patrick come back. We can talk about Rite of Spring and other projects.
Absolutely, man. Are you going to be at San Diego this year?
That is still up in the air. I didn't realize there was a deadline for the press passes in January, and I was like, "What?"
Gotcha.
I was applying like at the end of January, and I'm like, "What?" Supposed to start in July. Yeah.
Well, I should be at San Diego, New York this year, so hit me up if you're ready.
I'll definitely be in New York. We try to do New York every year. We're trying to do a panel this year with a couple of other of our YouTube friends, but yeah, for sure, dude. But seriously, man, thank you so much for joining, and everybody, thank you so much for joining us live. And if you're watching this later, go and check out Godzilla 1 dropping in July. And again, the FOC for that is on June 2nd. And then, or June 9th, sorry. June 2nd is the Rite of Spring. And then the second Godzilla book, the Dead Zone book, that one, Escape from the Dead Zone, is in...
It's in August. Yeah. I don't have the pre-order deadline for that one up, but hey, when you pre-order Godzilla number 1, just toss in that Escape the Dead Zone pre-order as well, get it all at once. So yeah, I think they're all very different flavors, but they all serve to illuminate different aspects of the same world. I think it's super fun. I mean, the art on these alone is fantastic. And at the end of the day, if you're making Godzilla comics or any comics, like what you're trying to do is give artists reasons to draw great art. So, they're super fun. They all get weirder as they go. They all evolve in super fun ways. And yeah, this is just the beginning. The Kai-Sei universe is not getting any more normal. It is just going to keep evolving. So yeah, come along for the ride.
October gives us Starship Godzilla, which is a different type of Godzilla comic starring Mecha
Different
Godzilla.
flavor, same universe. So yeah, absolutely. So
well, everybody, thank you so much for joining. Stay healthy and safe out there. We are